Hi, I'm Sam from the Wisconsin Humane Society, and this is my dog Gwen. Today we're going to talk through all of the information that you need to be successful prior to week 1 of your group training class. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the way that we train. We will train primarily through utilizing positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is the concept that if your dog is reinforced for a specific behavior, they are more likely to perform that behavior again in the future. We can reinforce them for cued or taught behaviors, such as sit, down, or stay. We can also reinforce them for behaviors that they just happen to do on their own. If your dog lays on their dog bed, chews on an appropriate item, or stays calm when guests enter your home, we can reinforce all of those behaviors, and it will increase the likelihood that we see those behaviors again. It is important to recognize that positive reinforcement works whether or not we are a part of the process. If your dog jumps up on your counter, grabs a sandwich, and eats it, they have just been positively reinforced for jumping on the counter, and they will be more likely to perform that behavior going forward. Because of this, management will be a very important part of your training plan. Be sure to make sure that if your dog is big enough to jump up on the counters, that you limit their access to that space unless you are there to support them. This may mean that you close the kitchen door, or you put a baby gate up in that doorway so that they cannot practice counter surfing unless you are in the space with them. This might also mean that you purchase a heavy-duty stainless steel garbage can with a lid so that they can't tip it over, or that you put your garbage can inside of a cupboard or a closet so that they cannot access it at all. A part of your homework will be looking through your space and deciding what spaces might cause concern for you and your dog. If there is a space where your dog typically performs a behavior that you would rather they not, think through what management pieces you can put in place to support them while you are helping them to develop alternative behaviors. Next, we'll talk about what our goals for the class are. Our first goal is going to be teaching our dogs to feel comfortable and relaxed when we take them to new spaces. It is important to understand that unless your dog is comfortable, experiencing relaxation, able to take food, and able to offer you attention, we cannot reasonably ask them for other behaviors. Because of that, relaxation will always be our baseline. Once we have relaxation and a dog who is interested in taking their reinforcers, we can then begin to build other behaviors. Some of the behaviors that we will work on building in this class are the foundations for relaxation around food, sit and down stays, coming when called, and nice leash manners. Next, we'll talk through what your homework will be prior to week 1. Your first piece of homework will be to watch the trade game video in full. After you have watched the video, if your dog does not have a history of resource guarding, begin to work through the training protocol that is outlined in the video. If your dog does have a history of resource guarding, reach out to us for next steps. If, while you are working through the training protocol, your dog does show signs of resource guarding, stop what you're doing and reach out to us for additional support. The next thing that we'll do is we'll look at assessing what your dog's highest and lowest value reinforcers are. You'll want to get an array of dog treats and dog-safe people food, such as hot dogs and cheese. Cut these items up into teeny tiny pieces. Once you've done so, you'll begin to offer your dog just a little bit of each variety at a time. When you offer the food to your dog, do they immediately take it and look back to you for more? Or do they turn and walk away? If your dog is highly interested in the food, that will be a viable reinforcer to use during your training sessions. If your dog is not terribly interested in the food, it will not likely be a good reinforcer. Once you've figured out which foods your dog is most interested in, make a list of the highest and lowest value reinforcers on that list. The highest value reinforcers will be the things that your dog is most excited to acquire. While you do want to make sure that your dog is always interested in the reinforcers that you're offering, be sure to save the very highest value reinforcers for times when your dog is going to need a higher level of support. This might be when you work outside, when you're going for a walk, or when you're working on coming when called. A part of your homework prior to week 1 will be practicing your training setup with your dog. We will practice the same training setup that we are going to give them for very short sessions every day prior to week 1 of class. The goal will be for our dogs to recognize this training setup and feel positively about it, so that they can become comfortable in the class setting as quickly as possible. Be sure to provide them with a comfortable blanket, scattered treats, a long-term chew, and a filled dish of water. Then allow your dog into the space. A long-term chew should be an edible item, such as a bully stick, yak chew, no hide, or a Kong or topple that has been filled with a spreadable, edible substance, such as canned dog food, and then frozen. Once all of your items are out, go ahead and let your dog into the space. Allow them to sniff, explore, and eat the food on the ground. If they do not eat the treats on the ground, that indicates that you will need to invest more time into acclimating them to the space. Remember, until we see that our dogs are highly comfortable in an individual environment, we cannot ask them to perform other behaviors. Relaxation will always be our first goal. Once Gwen finishes eating the food on the blanket, I reach into my treat pouch, which will be a necessary part of your class equipment, and I scatter more treats on the ground. The goal is that once your dog finishes eating the food, that they look back to you for more. I do this several times in a row. Gwen is readily and comfortably eating the food that I'm providing for her. After several repetitions, I close my treat pouch, put it behind my back, sit down, and I use the verbal cue "all done" to indicate that I will not be tossing more food. I then patiently wait to see whether or not Gwen chooses to interact with her long-term chew, which is my goal. If Gwen did not interact with her long-term chew, that would simply indicate that she would need more frequent sessions to acclimate to the space. It may also mean that I need to try providing her with a higher value long-term chew. This piece of homework will be necessary prior to our first working week. Ideally, you would practice this once a day before our first working week, so that by the time we are ready to ask our dogs to work in this space, they are highly comfortable. In summary, your homework prior to week 1 will be to assess your dog's high and low value reinforcers. Watch the trade game video, and if appropriate, practice the trade game. Practice your training setup at home with your dog. Now let's talk about what will happen when you arrive for class on week 1. You will ideally leave your dog in the car so that you can set up your space without also having to support their behavior in that moment. Remember, you will need to have a comfortable blanket for your dog, a long-term chew, such as a topple, Kong, or bully stick, a treat pouch, at least 3 types of reinforcers, a water dish and a bottle of water from home. You will need to have a mask for yourself. Plan to bring your dog to class in the equipment that you would normally walk them in. Typically, this would be a comfortable flat collar or a comfortable well-fit harness. Most importantly, though, bring your dog in on what you and your dog are most comfortable with. If needed, we will discuss alternative options week 1 of class. Please be sure to bring your dog in with a regular 4 to 6 foot long leash. And do not bring retractable leashes, as they are not conducive to the training environment. When you enter the space, your instructor will direct you towards a particular chair. So please wait until they have let you know where you should set up before beginning to unpack your items. If you were able to safely leave your dog in the car, set up your space first, and then go retrieve your dog from the car. If you were not able to safely leave them in the car, your instructor will support you as you set up if they are available to do so. Remember, we want our dogs to be busy and relaxed from the moment they enter the space. So immediately provide them with a filled dish of water, their long-term chew, and begin to scatter food for them so that they have something to do rather than focusing on the other dogs and people in the space. When you do enter the space with your dog, you will use some type of food to guide your dog from the door to their training space. In this video, I'm using a piece of cheese for my dog to lick, chew, and nibble on until we get to his blanket, where he is able to continue eating the scattered food that I pre-planted on the blanket and his long-term chew. You may also use a spoon with peanut butter or cream cheese on it, or any other edible item that your dog will be interested in enough to continue working on as you move through an exciting space. This will both decrease the likelihood that your dog will pull you through that space, but will also decrease the likelihood that your dog becomes focused on other dogs or people and begins to whine and bark. Next, let's talk about managing your dog in the presence of other dogs. Please keep in mind that dogs will not be socializing during this class, and you will not allow your dog to approach and interact with other dogs. The only exception to this rule would be during our structured puppy playtime during our puppy classes. Outside of that time, we will ask that you keep your puppies and adult dogs separate and do not allow them to interact until your instructor specifically tells you that it is time to allow your puppy to do so. We want to teach our dogs that in this context, when they see other dogs, it is simply a reason to look to you for reinforcement. When a dog goes by, you will toss treats on your dog's blanket so that they stay as busy as possible and also stay very relaxed. If your dog does become focused on another dog, simply encourage them to redirect their attention towards you, put food right in front of their face, turn their head away from that dog, and feed them while praising them for making the choice to turn towards you rather than that dog. Be sure to watch out for moments where your dog may begin to get focused and enthusiastic about dogs in the same space as them, and preemptively redirect their attention back to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and for completing all of the exercises prior to your first week of class. We look forward to seeing you soon in class. Happy training!